Yes, there were times, I'm sure you knew, when I bit off more than I could chew. But through it all, when there was doubt, I ate it up and spit it out. I faced it all, and I stood tall and did it my way. Thank you, son. Thank you. What's up, everybody? It's me, Danae, and I'm here with a message for you. Now, that you might be wondering was one hell of an intro. Why one hell of an intro? And I'll tell you, it's multi-layered, but it definitely is synchronistic with the message today. So, as I like to do, I'll go in order as to how things downloaded. So I shuffled the cards, and I wasn't really looking for a preview. I was really just picking it up from the last message, to be completely transparent, and shuffling them to sort of kind of prepare them for a reading. And I did see messages. It was so clear what I was seeing, as a matter of fact, while I was shuffling. But then I put that to the side, and I actually started writing a prayer for the new moon, which is today, new moon in Scorpio. Side note, I write a prayer for every new moon and full moon, eclipses, whatever celestial event I feel inclined to do so, but always the moon transits, and some things in between. So I'll put that to the side, and I focused my energy on that. But the message was so clear from when I was shuffling that I was pretty sure I would remember it. I didn't really have, any second thought about it. I just put it to the side, and this is where I landed at the end of that shuffling on the full card. But then I shuffled my deck. This is my oracle deck. Each card represents a card in the tarot, and I landed on consecration. And interestingly enough, at that moment, I couldn't remember anything else from before. I couldn't remember the messages that I had previewed in the pre-shuffle with the tarot deck. And consecration, just so you know, represents the high priestess in my 78 card deck. And the dark side, just so you know, is condemnation. Oh, there's vitality again. That's the second time that's come up in my cards. That's interesting. I need to get into that word for sure. But anyway, consecration was what came up, which again is the high priestess in the upright. So what dawned on me is that, maybe all the things that I was picking up, which weren't all that positive, it was kind of a lot of like adverse energy about, from what I can remember, about missteps that somebody has taken, and pretty much where it's landed them to this point. And it just felt like none of it really mattered, especially landing on the full card, which is the first card in the tarot, and like the initiation of a new path, a new journey, a new cycle, maybe even a new life. So it was kind of like almost, it kind of almost overshadowed, kind of voided all of the negative energy I was picking up, and refocused my attention on perhaps a new message, perhaps what is more prominent of a word at this moment than what has just been cycling over and over again, for the most part, unfortunately. So then I sat down, and my son was in his room at his desk, and he was singing My Way. Now, this has been like a running joke because they're, you know how these kids, they see trends with songs that are old, you know, and he had the nerve to say, you give me some date of some remake or whatever. I'm like, boy, that song is older than me, you, both of our grandparents, probably. And, you know, I had to give him the history of it with Frank Sinatra being the one who really made it popular, of course. And it's like some trend in social media on like shorts and stuff, usually used as like the soundtrack of some type of game. Um, some things that happen in the game, particularly this new game that the kids are playing called Still a Brain Rot or whatever on Roblox. So every now and again, he just busts out into like crooning this song, and he was a little nervous, I could tell, but usually he sings it with so much conviction, like he was Sinatra himself. I'm like, boy, you don't sit your old ass down somewhere. Like, it's just a running joke that every now and again he'll just bust out with it out of nowhere, and it'll just be so funny. But anyway, it seemed like the most opportune time that he sang it as he did, especially when he did, to himself. He wasn't loud or anything, but I could hear him, and I was like, something just told me maybe that's the channel song, and maybe I need to allow him to sing it. And you know, I jumped in with him. But consecration, by definition, is like setting yourself apart. Particularly devotion to the practice or worship or reverence of some deity, you know. And I feel like it's so proper to have that be kind of like the soundtrack of the preview message, landing on consecration, which again is the high priestess, because a lot of times the high priestess is kind of in a world of her own, you know, a lane of her own, masculine or feminine. Those that embody the energy of the high priestess are often set aside, consecrated, if you will, for some higher purpose, or, you know, choose to set themselves aside for such. And perhaps with the Fool card here, it's denoting or depicting the beginning of a new leg of the journey of the high priestess. Whatever that gets to mean, and it doesn't have to be super spiritual. It certainly doesn't have to be religious, because the high priestess actually, contrary to the Hierophant, is not necessarily the orthodox expression of worship or piety, or especially not religion itself per se. And even if so, it's usually some nuanced expression, or some sometimes even taboo expression of what would typically be considered orthodox or traditional. But to broaden the transmission of the message, it's not so much about spirituality or religion at all as it is just about creative expression, and you allowing yourself, or whomever can relate to this message, to do you your way, whether that's creatively, professionally, relationally, how maybe religiously, maybe spiritually. Like, it's really about allowing yourself to completely be flexed and stretched by the limitless imagination of your supreme self, if that makes sense. To exercise that frequency of light and express, maybe even expel that frequency of light in whatever way you feel most called and designed to do so, unapologetically and without guilt, shame, or remorse, and really without even care of whether or not it's going to be understood, accepted, rejected, or otherwise. It literally is about being you and doing you in the most holistic, and in this case, fearless and faithful way. Because my oracle deck that represents the Fool is faith, and in the most faithful way you possibly can be. You know, like almost weightlessly in a sense, especially weightless and eliminating the baggages of such that I've already listed, like acceptance, understanding, what do you call it? Validation, appreciation, you know, all of those things that hold a lot of stock in the 3D world in some capacity, but when it comes to a higher calling, a greater anointing, and even a deeper expression of self, none of it really matters. It only matters what you ultimately invest in yourself of those things, you know. So, and of course, that investment comes from the security of that synergy between yourself and your supreme, whatever that may be, whether it's God, ancestry, the universe, source, the earth, whatever your reverence, your highest reverence of power is, so are you also. So be that as it may, you know, it would behoove us all to just completely shed the limitations that keep us from fully expressing that power in our humanity, in spirit and in flesh. All right, so my way, your way, is the message to start. All right, consecration is key. Not waiting for anybody else to give you the green light or tell you you're doing it right or wrong for that matter, but just trusting yourself to be yourself in this season. That's the ticket. It really is. All right. So with that being said, let's get into these cards and see what we got. Ooh, okay. Two of Swords, finally. And the struggle at that. So there's some guard up here. Maybe some boundaries. Something's being kept out or kept at bay. I'm seeing, it's funny because this energy, I'm looking at the prayer that I wrote not too long ago today, and it has a great deal of synergy with it. As a matter of fact, like I felt like maybe that was supposed to be the leading preview for me to share, you know, the prayer as it is for this moon, and maybe it is, and I think I will. It's not very long, and I write my prayers in the form of poetry. So, yeah, it's something about appearing to be blind, but there being an omniscience here that is almost being channeled. That's what I'm seeing with these two swords, from a higher source or from an outer source, or maybe from an inner source, because her arms are crossed within her chest. And it's an inside out expression, probably more so that than anything, because we actually hear from the inside. But sometimes we see messages around us that are confirming or affirming. But a lot of the revelation, say, of the high priestess energy and what that energy channels comes from an inner knowing. So the outside appearance at times can be quite strange, maybe sometimes even unassuming on sight, perhaps sometimes almost defenseless, or ignorant as well, or definitely maybe naive or something of that nature. But that's often like the cape of the high priestess energy, to appear as if she's none the wiser or he's none the wiser, but there being a wealth of knowing and information swirling about the insides of that individual, and available to tap into. Again, masculine or feminine, it's like an unlimited source and resource of insight, dare I say, many times foresight. So yeah, there's something here that it's like what the card typically would mean, and it could even be keeping that knowledge guarded or close to the chest. So if there are certain things that are being revealed at this time in your secret prayer closet or in your meditations, it's also a characteristic of the high priestess energy to know what is to be shared and what isn't, and that comes with time and experience, because usually the natural response is just to kind of share whatever you hear or learn or know for the purposes of helping or enlightening others, especially if you think that it can. Nobody wants to hold information, almost hoard information to themselves if they think it can be of use. But I guess in this case, it's fair to say that sometimes less is more. And in this season, maybe it's not quite as necessary to kind of spill your guts, or just to be discerning with who you share with, when you share, and how much you share. Because some things may just be for personal, like a for your information type of energy, a FYI. So with that said, I'm going to just read. This feels like it's going to be a strange message in a way, because I'm already seeing cards weird. So I'm going to follow my inclination to go ahead and read the prayer for this Scorpio new moon. All right. And it goes as such. Peekaboo, hide and seek. I pray my Lord my soul to keep. As the veil dissipates, assure my eye for heaven's sake. Let me fall in a trance. Rock of ages, uphold my stance. Charmed, I'm sure. Love is blind. Omniscient, though, to capture time. What a sight to behold, and so it is, the truth be told. It is so, and so it is. All right, so that's my personal prayer. Now I've just shared it with you, so feel free to ritualize it as you will in your new moon practices, whatever they might be, or just to hide it in your heart, as ultimately, it feels like it was channeled. A lot of times it comes through quite fluidly, and then I understand the meaning after the fact, or sometimes even weeks later after the fact, or when I go back and read after some time. And it just feels like the essence of the Scorpio season, which ultimately is shining the light on shadows and revelation in dark spaces. So, take that as you will. And revelation of truth for the purposes of what? Full card, beginning anew, starting fresh, bringing closure to seasons past, maybe traumas past, open-ended questions, experiences, mysteries in your life, mysteries around you, mysteries about people and relationships, encounters, closure um, and confirmation on things that have been otherwise mystical at most, mysterious at least. So that's a wide range. A Scorpio is a very intense sign and can be quite deep and psychologically deep. There could be a great deal of things to navigate, or to not navigate, what's the right word? I can't hear the word, but like to sift through or to dive into. But if you receive that with a sense or a spirit of excitement and not fear, then you're in a perfect space and time for transformation, which is also Scorpio energy. A transformation that ultimately may be resetting you on an even more desirable path, perhaps than you've ever been on, but certainly than where you've been, I would say. All right, so let's see what else we got. Whoa, sheesh. All right, that popped. Like, I ain't never had it pop like this, and it did come out in a struggle. I'm gonna keep it upright, but there's definitely something questionable about it. It literally landed almost falling off the table like this to the side. So it's in a struggle, on the fence, as some say. Maybe some offer was on the fence. Whether or not someone would I just literally heard like somebody was on their way to bring an offer, and they changed their mind, like, no, maybe not. Like, maybe they read the room or read the signs that somebody is not so open to being seduced or persuaded or love bombed. I hear that too. Love bombed at the worst, or flattered. Somebody's not so sentimental here with the Two of Swords and the Knight of Cups. So it's like somebody was on their way, and then they were like, on second thought, maybe I better mind my pride and about face. That's funny. All right. Which is good, because with the Knight of Cups, if there was some ulterior motive that wasn't fully developed, wasn't, 100% sincere, pure, like there's something, sometimes, especially with it coming out in a struggle, that means it's something about it that's not quite holistic. Not to mention it's a knight in the first place, but there's something about it that is still questionable. And we'll see what the card comes up next, but that could be a number of things. It could be someone operating from, in the way the card popped out, like an imbalanced emotional state, like maybe almost impulsively acting out of emotions, but isn't really prepared to devote themselves in the way that they may want to present themselves to do so. It may not even be nefarious or, anything deceptive in nature. In the most practical sense, it really just could be someone like, man, I think I still got some work to do, or I think I need to I need to grow up a little bit or mature or maybe just do some healing, perhaps, get a little deeper into my emotional bag before I start trying to offer a cup to somebody. And sometimes a love interest or an object of affection is the perfect inspiration for that realization. So it's not all bad, but there's definitely some yeah, like I would say an unrequited connection here that apparently it's like the Two of Swords it's really no love lost for the Two of Swords. 12:28 on the clock. It's no love lost for the Two of Swords because it's like there wasn't an anticipation or eagerness for it anyway. So if it never came, cool, but if it did come, it would need to come correct, is what I'm seeing. And you may be in that position now in regards to love or anything, maybe not just love, but opportunities, propositions, offers, to connect or collaborate in a range of capacities where it's not necessarily something that you're in the market for per se, or you're dependent on. So there is a bit of a boundary erected here, or like almost a guardedness, in fact, where because you're not desperate for it or dependent on anything or anyone in particular, nothing is welcome to take up space unnecessarily, or uselessly, and certainly not destructively. If it's not adding value, it's just, some may feel like I'd rather be solo dolo. I could do good all by myself, as I like to say. Which we know is the saying is the opposite, but you feel me. And it ties back to this consecration piece, because there's something sacred about your energy that you realize or recognize now that requires you to be protective of it. And again, it's no love loss, it's no shade, no tea, no harm, no foul to anyone that may not be on the same frequency or vibration. It's like live and let live, but there's a certain sense of security with self that is non-negotiable at this point, because you realize that your purpose, your plans, your design, especially in the divine capacity, is just too precious and important to jeopardize, no matter how good it may look or sound or even feel. Like the consideration of an offer or a proposition has to be carefully considered, dare I say scrutinized, for the purposes of, again, preserving your purity. And that's with consecration, that couldn't be in even the most practical sense, especially when we're talking about this cup energy and taking a more objective approach about it. When we're talking about your sexual energy or your intimate energy, that could be physical and it could be beyond physical, or not be physical at all. Just your presence alone is powerful, and everyone shouldn't have access to it, unapologetically so. And you shouldn't feel bad when, like, don't feel like, because sometimes women of a certain standard can get the rap of being too, I don't like, like they're being too hard to please, or too picky, or too selective, or no such a thing. Now, if you're selective to the point where you are secluding yourself from things that you actually do want, and things that actually would be good for you, then that's a you problem. That's on you. But when it comes from an opinion of someone or something that just doesn't wish to or have the capacity to meet you where you are, it's inadmissible in this court, in this spiritual court, in the court of spiritual law. There is no such thing as thinking too highly of yourself. How can you, if you see yourself in the image of the divine as a direct design and expression, iteration of divine light, love, dare I say, then how could you ever think too highly? That's the highest you could possibly think. And it's righteous to do so. Don't let nobody tell you any different. All these coming out in the sliding to the side. All right, we got the Three of Cups, which is some type of oh yeah, see what I'm saying? Like perfect depiction of quality versus quantity. Let people go where they're best suited. Yep, it's just giving that, like, you know what, I'm gonna take my chances over here, where they already pouring it up, toasting it up, drinking and being merry. They're what do you call it? What do you call it when you're like, when you've been drinking and like you're, what is that term? Like when you're not your senses are corrupted, but you know what I'm trying to say, like your reactions are corrupted. It's a term for it, like when you're like intoxicated here. Compromised, I think, not corrupted, but maybe I said corrupted for a reason. Maybe he's bringing the corruption over here, or hoping that these energies can be corrupted. Is like someone who shies away from the challenge of actually having to bring a pure cup of, or to be sincere, I'll say, let's call it what it is, to be sincere wholeheartedly, to opt out for a place where they can blend in, or give the bare minimum, you know. But also in this case, as sometimes I see it with the cup, the Knight of Cups, not as much as the Page of Cups, but the Knight of Cups, it's like they might bring something to the party, but it's like coming to a BYOB type of event, right? And you bring your one bottle, but once that's done, you at everybody's table drinking everything everybody's offering, or everything, you know. Once they're again, like they're damn, I can't think of this term, like when people are not really as aware, you know, maybe a little drunk, a little intoxicated, you start pouring a little bit of their bottles into your cup or into your bottle or whatever, till before they know it, it's like, damn, we drank all that already. They didn't even realize that somebody was siphoning their liquor, pouring up their liquor, cup by cup. You know, it's probably more energetic, you know, as I'm speaking of it in a practical sense, where it's like someone that just goes around looking to kind of drain or siphon others' energy in places that are more vulnerable, and where, you know, where they're not as attuned to their discernment because it's impaired, you know, for whatever reason. It's impaired. Would I say compromised, corrupted, something like that? Yeah. So yeah. He, well, and this is the cautionary tale that for those that, you know, may be getting told, oh, you too hard, you expect too much, your standards too high, you this, you that, that's why you still single, that's why you ain't got a man, that's why your relationships don't last, whatever it is that's been told. It's like, yeah, block that, because this type of energy is doing more to keep out the riffraff than it is to keep out the one, because the one that truly deserves to enter that intimate space will know how to disarm those boundaries in a healthy way, and not even disarm them, but I would say would inspire someone to disarm themselves, even without force, just by presence alone, and again by sincerity alone, to disarm themselves to, you know, an open posture or an open heart. So a lot of times you got boundaries and blockages up, maybe actually got people on block literally for a reason. This ain't the season to be rethinking that. Like, well, you know, maybe I was tripping, maybe I was doing too much, I was being too sensitive, I was thinking too much, I was in my head. Probably not. Probably not. Your first instinct to protect yourself is probably the right one. These ladies over here are like, what they call it, like chickens in the hen house. Or no, that's the same thing. Well, I guess it's like a fox approaching the hen house or the chicken coop or something like that. Whatever the saying is, you get what I'm saying. They don't even know it. Or shoot, maybe they do, and he don't even know that he because sometimes it happens that way too, especially in this season where people think they about to come kick game on a lower level, and they actually meet their match and end up getting swindled worse than what they could have ever done to anybody else. That's going around too in this season, so everybody needs to be careful, for real. Yeah. Exactly. Wowzers. That's the worst type of betrayal right here, when you end up face down in the dirt with swords in your back. Yeah, somebody didn't see it coming. Somebody didn't see it coming, but still, I think it's fair to say they brought it on themselves by way of their intentions. So let's see. Ain't much to say about that because I said everything before the fact. Wow, and then somebody gets, damn, somebody gets demoted or degraded, not demoted, maybe demoted in some form of this message, but it's like somebody's being degraded. Not, is degraded a word? I don't think I just made that up. Maybe so, but degraded, that's what it is. Degraded, like stripped of their, with little pride and ego. This is like Casanova right here, Knight of Cups. Well, maybe Knight of Wands is more Casanova. What'd you say? I don't know. Because I guess it depends on how you see Casanova. Because, well, Casanova definitely had a vice for, you know, for women, you know, and the affection of women, or the intimacy of, or just the female essence. But I feel like the Knight of Wands usually is going to be active in that in that engagement, you know, more on a physical level. The Knight of Cups may not even be so active in the sense of like it being a physical thing. This is somebody that just kind of likes to just seduce women could be for their entertainment purposes, for their personal advancements, like whatever they can get out of a woman energetically, emotionally. It could even be just the emotional exchange itself, you know, looking to just be filled up on that feminine force. And then, you know, like more or less use that as your own fuel to do something else, manifest, whatever. Or physically, you know, using women in some powerful way, well, let's say some profitable way to advance your own personal agenda, but it may not be sexual. That's the thing. So I think that's the difference between the idea of a Casanova and maybe a Romeo, but Romeo really was for one woman in the end. So I don't know. I guess Casanova fits. Well, anyway, whatever somebody Don Juan, I don't know how maybe that it applies more, but it's somebody that really, like I said, kind of met their match. Maybe met a few of their matches. I'm getting that there was some cahoots or collusion here where somebody thought they was about to come and, like I said, ransack the chicken coop, and they got pecked to death. Wow. And now it's like they got stripped, maybe of their pride and their ego, or their suave, you know, like everything that they thought that they were, persuasively, seductively, kind of got lost in this brutal beating here. Damn, like I'm seeing it and I'm feeling it, but somebody has been degraded to like a child state, docile, maybe because they don't have any confidence in themselves anymore. They've lost all confidence. They don't even believe themselves when they try to, like, I'm seeing this image of somebody like giving themselves a pep talk, or, you know, that talk in the mirror, you know, like, you got this, you could add like words of affirmations that they try to speak to themselves, like, you the man, you've been doing this, you bring these hoes to their knees, you got them all in the bag, everybody want, like, they tell themselves all the things that maybe once upon a time seemed true or they had evidence for, but it's not really doing the job to even convince themselves to be, you know, confident enough to carry that energy on to whatever, for whatever purpose. So they damn sure not convincing nobody else. And they may have actually lost some of that swag. I said suave, like some of that swag, when they turned away from leveling up to a challenge. They said, nah, I ain't got time for that. I don't got the energy for that. I'll come over here and grab me some of these young tenderonis that don't know no better, that could be shaped and molded, you know, in my image, into what I want them to be and what I want them to think and how I want them to feel, and to respond to my emotional manipulations. And damn, for real? Okay, so somebody was definitely on a mission, a deranged one at that, and they met their match. They met their match. It's got somebody like they don't even know who they are anymore. With a Page of Cups, they saying all the words to try to bring themselves back to some stable emotional state of security, but it's been washed away. And the girls is like, yeah, girls, we got another one. That's what they celebrating. Damn. Vicious. Vicious. That's the word. Vicious. Jeez. Okay, what's that? Yeah, look at this. Trying to defend themselves now. I'm hearing defend their manhood. Damn. Oh, that sucks. Because if somebody's whole program is founded on this seductive quality that they think they possess or have possessed, and it's been stripped down, it's one thing to face that reality yourself and still try to, rebound from it. But this is now defending that storyline to whomever learns of it. So it's like this fatal blow is not just, it's not secret, it's like news. It's circulating as like news or like, gossip or ooh. Oh shoot. This is something real bad. When I said gossip, I felt something on that. And questioning somebody's manhood, it's either about circulating about someone's sexuality, their performance, particularly sexually or intimately, or their health, especially looking at this Page of Cups. Is putting somebody in a position to not only have a bad rap about them, there's some type of receipts about it or something about it that's so damning. Condemnation is the dark side of consecration. So this is the opposite of somebody that set themselves apart, that, secured their sacred energy, didn't just pass it around, give it out to whomever they could connect with for ulterior motives, like almost pimping themselves out, even though they thought they was pimping other people out. They got pimped out, is what I'm seeing. And it didn't turn out very well, because quite specifically, someone either has some type of infection that has been proven and that there's evidence for. This could be people that's mad about coming in contact with them, and it could even be a spiritual one. It doesn't have to be physical, but there's some type of cause for alarm and outrage against someone for how they have infected others, which is why this is kind of like a poetic justice or some type of righteous indignation here of someone's fall, because, as I said, they just met their match of what they've been doing in the streets for a long time. They just came across someone or a group of individuals that do it better. Damn. And it's something that it may be something incurable or terminal, because it's like a regression in time here, like from the Knight of Cups down to the Page. And somebody might be literally fighting for their life to survive whatever it is that they have going on, let alone all of the opposition and resistance that they have encountered now on account of their actions. It's like everything's flaring up at once, physically, emotionally, psychologically. I don't see no pentacles on the board. swords, cups, and some wands. Let me get one more. Oh, the Hierophant. The opposite of the High Priestess. There it is. I get some cultish behavior, especially given I'm saying the opposite of the High Priestess. We all know that sometimes that Hierophant can be some type of coven, cult, secret society, some group will. What did he say? I forget what Spiritual Savage says, like some group of idiots or something like that. He said something he says. That's funny. I can't think of exactly what it is, but a group of people that are on the same page almost religiously, or are devoted to a central cause or objective. But in this case, I don't get good vibes. Not leading with the High Priestess and all of that splendor to begin with, to come down to what is the counterpart, more or less in the upright, but feels like almost the polar opposite, considering from all the way over here to coming to this end. You know, it's something strange. Like, it looks like it would be safe and trustworthy, but it's not. It looks like it's quite dangerous. And for whatever reason, there's a cause for someone to feel like they need to protect themselves, to guard themselves. Maybe for condemnation. Maybe that's what this is representing here. And that could just be purely, you know, like objectively on account of what they have created, you know. And like I said, it's like a justice here, a righteous judgment, where someone is facing a great deal of hardship, but it's fair. You know, it's nothing unjust here. What else with this Hierophant? I don't know. I feel like, you know, back to the beginning with the channel song, My Way, it's like somebody was just, or some, maybe, you know how I speak, but some would have just been kind of swept into the chaos of the crowd, you know, again, for fear of standing out or being left out or being rejected, or, you know, sticking out like a sore thumb. Again, they blended into these societies, these friend groups, these organizations, maybe even within the tradition of their own family and upbringings and things, society on whole, because sometimes it just feels too weird to be the odd man out. You know, naturally as human beings, we want to be embraced. We want to be understood and accepted. And if you don't find the strength and the insight to cultivate that acceptance for yourself, that affirmation from an internal resource, sometimes you find yourself in very compromising positions, dependent on it from the outside in. And it sometimes is dressed up as just what we do, what's always been done, what is societally acceptable, what is, you know, the conventional way or the traditional way. And a lot of times it it can be self-destructive from the inside out before you even realize it. You will have sacrificed yourself to concepts and constructs and conduct and I don't know, like, you get me, to all the things that you feel are leading you in a direction of I won't say righteousness in this case, it's more rightfulness. The validation of being right or appearing to be right or in right standing with the general consensus, or, you know, like it's a trap. It's a trap, but it's one that's hard to evade because we're just naturally conditioned to surrender to it, to walk right into it, just as carefree almost as the full card itself, until you make a strong decision to switch pathways. And when that type of decision, there's no mistaking it. There's no blending in. There's no going along to get along. It's almost inevitable that when you take the path of consecration, which is whatever it means to you, is usually the road less traveled, you're almost always going to face all of your worst fears. All of the things you wished you'd never encounter. But that just comes along with the territory. It's not for the faint of heart. That's for sure. But it's so rewarding along the way once you lock in and accept that this is just my way and it's going to be my way or the highway for anyone that wants to join me, essentially. It actually is quite scenic route, I would say. Yeah. But anyway, it's 57, so let's close. Oh, wow. I've been talking about judgment this whole time. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. It's about the decision that's made for self, first and foremost. And then, that integration of divine to then express itself through your resurrection or rebirth, as you allow it to be. It's all met according to your will and your allowance. Nothing is by force, which is why it makes the choice that much more pivotal, because nobody's going to come along and take your hand and drag you down the path. Nobody's going to force you. Most people can't and or won't even point you in the right direction. So that's why, when you find it, you got to hold fast to it. If you find yourself feeling like a fish out of water in the world at times, you're probably exactly where you need to be until you've come across that pond of soul tribe, whenever that may get to be. It's almost inevitable to feel a little bit like the odd man out most of the time. So in most cases, you should probably just get comfortable there. Wow. Wow, the star. I don't even I don't even know what to say about that. This is literally rising to the occasion of your supreme self, again, expressed through your humanity. That integration of source and self. Pouring out all that you got into the earth. To create something of light. You know, to even leave an imprint on creation itself in the name of the divine. In the essence of the divine. Forget the name, because we're going to argue all day about what to call the name. You say it's this, I say it's that. It's all tomato, tomato, potato, potato. It's whatever it is that you aspire to be the highest ordinance and origin of creativity. And then imagine that being expressed through your physical being. It's like a great awakening of superstars. The resurrection of like titans and gods and goddesses that have already accepted their true identity, even when the whole world or everything in their surrounding existence has opposed it, has refuted it. It's like being affirmed in a supernatural sense, you know, first of all, from the inside out in ways that couldn't even really be explained holistically, because it's a matter of personal experience, that knowing, again, that consecration, and then it being put on display for the world to see. And that can come, again, by way of the expression of your creativity in whatever capacity that is: singing, writing, acting, dancing, making movies, creating software, connecting people. There is no limit. It's endless. That's why every star is unique, because, I mean, it's so cliche to say, but there's just nobody doing it the way that you're doing it. Even if they're doing the same thing, it's not the way you're doing it, which is why it has been preserved and protected for such a time as this. So again, you could never think too highly of yourself, because guaranteed, especially when it's a righteous dignity, what you feel about yourself is nothing compared to how the divine sees you. It's a pale comparison. You may actually be astounded to begin to kind of see your reflection in the heaven and earthly waters of your true identity. You may not be able to believe what you see, which again brings me back to my prayer about opening your eyes, you know, seeing the shadows in the light. What a sight to behold. So it is, the truth be told. And the truth is you. So, congratulations, job well done on whatever it is that you're doing, most importantly on being yourself and always aspiring to be the best of yourself that you possibly can be. and Godspeed along that path as you continue to do it your way. All right. As always, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, I leave you with peace.